in this Mass of the Holy Innocents, we remember those babies who were martyred for Christ. What happened to the joy of Christmas at that time? And we remember the innocents who were slaughtered just a few days before Christmas in Newtown, Connecticut. And tonight we pray especially for them, for their families and their friends, and for all of us who grieve. Where is the joy of Christmas in all of this? Our joy now has to be deeper, more solid, more substantial than bright lights and pretty colored packages with gifts inside. Those are beautiful things, but they are the external things that bring us to the real meaning, which is the gift of self to one another. And we're able to do this because God gives the gift of himself to us. Divine humanity can overcome the inhumanity of man. Our God is powerful, and he loves his enemies. That seems awful backwards. But what happened in his love for us, we realize that that whole suffering and crucifixion and death was a free gift of his life to all of us, for all ages, and to each of us in every age. And that power of his love, a God who lays down his life for his creatures, a God who is immortal, a God who cannot die, but he took on our humanity so that we could give him the ability to die. Do you realize in the incarnation that's the only thing we gave him? So he accepted our ability to die and then died for us. And just when the forces of evil, which have rendered all the inhumanity of man throughout all the centuries and millennia, it seemed to be triumphant, having committed deicide, then God showed the power of his love. He showed that his love cannot be conquered by any evil. There is tremendous joy at that reality, tremendous joy. It gives me hope, even as I face the slaughter of innocents. And there's a joy with that stays there even when there would be tears in my eyes. Tears over the death of people I love, like my parents, my brother. Tears that we have for all the people we love who have died. And when we think of little children, and then we picture our own children and grandchildren as little, and we think of them being senselessly slaughtered, something in our heart breaks. But there's something else. If we can believe this mystery, which is so beyond my comprehension, if we can believe this, there is something for these little ones that is holy and good. I firmly believe that these children are not suffering. Not at all. But their parents? I don't know how they can bear it. And for us, just thinking about these wonderful little children, for them we can say, yeah, I believe they're with God. I believe they're better off than all of us. But somehow there's still this aching hole in my heart, even not knowing any of them personally. And what do we do with this? That's where we have this tension. There is joy in the victory of Jesus, even while there is a sadness that just wrenches our hearts. And so we're left with the mystery. Somehow, man's inhumanity remains. But our hope is the fact that God entered the picture. And while we cannot overcome the inhumanity of man, God can and did overcome our humanity by his divinity. In Jesus, he has restored the union between humanity and divinity. And so we go forward as a people of hope. Hope is not this wish for the future, Like, I hope it doesn't rain tomorrow because then we have a picnic. That's a wish. Christian hope is looking forward to a future reality with such total confidence that I rejoice as though I possess it today, because in faith I do possess it today. That's our hope. That's our hope that we have at Christmas. It's the hope that we have at Easter. It is the only hope that can sustain us as we face the death of those we love. And it's the only hope that can sustain us when we face horrible, senseless tragedies of man's inhumanity to man. Let us continue to pray in hope and trust that God will, in His time, give us the grace so that the joy wells up within us and we offer thanksgiving. And that somehow, in the hope that He gives to us, this event moves further into the past and we're able to let go and surrender and allow our little ones to be with God, who loves them more and better than we do, and is able to bless them and bring them joy. And we then continue our journey through this world, darkened by sin, but lightened by the presence of Jesus Christ and by His victory on the cross. In the commentary before Mass, it had the words, when we can do nothing, we must remember that there is nothing that God cannot do. This is the good news of Jesus Christ. This is the good news of the victory of the cross over sin, over death. This is our hope. There is nothing that the love of God cannot accomplish. There is no goodness which is beyond God's desire or His ability. And so we surrender all things into His hands, making our journey, doing the best we can, but ultimately leaving the victory up to Him, trusting that He shares His victory with us.